Welcome to the Writer's Journey panel. Thank you for showing up on this beautiful Good Friday. Yeah, thank you. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. One of my panelists was not able to attend, Jeffrey Thorne, who was a producer on the Librarians on TNT. The traffic is horrible. He's stuck in LA, so he was not able to show up. However, I did find a suitable replacement by the name of Hannibal Taboo, and we will get into that. Okay, so first things first, who are these people? I'm going to introduce ladies first. Erica Alexander had starring roles on The Cosby Show as Cousin Pam and as lawyer extraordinaire Maxine Shaw on Fox's hit Living Single. She and her husband Tony Perrier have created Concrete Park, an awesome sci-fi, and I'm going to say this, it's awesome, sci-fi comic series released by Dark Horse. And Erica, a couple of years back, Erica got increased prominence because she wrote a spec of AMC's Mad Men that actually included black people. Yeah. So, let's thank you to Miss Erica Alexander.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Next to her is her husband, Tony Perrier, who is well known for the script to Arnold Schwarzenegger's film Eraser from 1996, and for developing the graphic novel Concrete Park. After being accepted into the prestigious Disney Writers Program, he got to work with Sidney Poitier, and with the sale of the script for Eraser, Tony got gigs with Oliver Stone, Mel Gibson, Jerry Bruckheimer, and Will Smith. That is Mr. Tony Perrier. Jeff is not here. Now, we have Mr. Mark Scott Zicree. Now, this man has done just about everything. He's a science fiction author, television writer, screenwriter. He's written for virtually all the major studios and networks. His credits include Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Twilight Zone, Babylon 5, Beauty and the Beast, Forever Night, Sliders, Friday the 13th, the series, Liberty's Kids, Super Friends, He-Man, Ghostbusters, The Smurfs, and a ton of pilots for every possible channel in the world. He is also the author of The Twilight Zone Companion, which was a detailed history of Rod Serling's landmark TV series. And he also has a crowd-funded science fiction epic that is independently created off of Kickstarter last year. It's called Space Command. He'll probably talk about that soon. And that's Mr. Mark Scott Zicree. And it's me. I broke into comics in 2002 on the Dreamwave series Arcanium, as well as Transformers Armada. I worked on Warner Brothers Animation's reboot of Thundercats in 2011, as well as Transformers Rescue Bots for Hasbro. My original graphic novel, Shadow Law, which was released in 2012, won the 2013 Glyph Award for Best Writer. I was nominated for 5 Glyph Awards last year, and also was nominated for an Eisner Award for Best Single Issue for Watson and Holmes #6. I won Best Writer, Story of the Year, and the Fan Award at the Glyph Awards. And I'm currently a member of the 2015 Disney Writers Program.
Yay.
So we say this all the time, and people laugh, but I really mean this. Nothing we say today is in any way, shape, or form meant to discourage you from pursuing your dreams as a creator and a writer. However, we feel that the best way to break in is to understand the nature of the game and be prepared as possible for the obstacles that will always seem to come out of nowhere. And I liken it to a military campaign. If you were going to be sent to Afghanistan tomorrow, chances are you'd want to be briefed. You just don't want to show up hot on the ground with no intel. This industry is very much like war sometimes, and you'll learn a little bit about that today. Another thing, we are very interactive, meaning that we need you to participate. If you have specially zeroed in questions, specific questions, ask us. Don't give us anything vague. We want to be able to help you in your journey as a creator. So, talking point number 1, finish what you start. One of the reasons I chose Mr. Zicree, other than his amazing resume, is that on YouTube, he had a great interview where he states 99% of the people in Hollywood never do what they say they're going to do. And with that being said, I open it up to my panel.
Yeah, great.
Anybody can talk.
Sure, since I'm being quoted. I mean, here's the other part. If you are part of the 1% that does what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, people will notice that, and that will cut you away from the herd. And also, if someone once asked me the secret of my success, and I said I don't give myself an out. So in other words, if I have to finish what I start, if I have to get to the finish line no matter how hard it is, people also start to notice that. And then they start to come to you wanting you to do, whatever, because they know that they can rely on you. So that's part of it. And also, if you do something that you're passionate about from your heart, if you're speaking with your own true voice and being your authentic self, that's also a big part of it too. So choose people to learn from and be mentored by who are that authentic thing. That's why I wrote The Twilight Zone Companion right out of college. There were no classes in how to be a writer, producer in television. So I thought, well, I'll learn from the greatest writer who ever worked in television. And it was 2 years after Rod died, but I interviewed 100 people who worked with him, and I crawled through his attic and went through all of his files and spent 5 years on that book. I started that book when I was 22 to learn how to write and produce TV. By the time I was 22, 23, I was writing for television. And then Ray Bradbury was my mentor for over a decade, and I just wrote a book with Guillermo del Toro, and he was mentoring me. So choose the people whose work you love, and then show that you're creating work that's up to their notice and regard. And coming to a convention is a great place to start, because all your heroes come here one way or another.
Real quick, I want to say I didn't introduce Hannibal, but I'll let him introduce himself, because he can do it so much better than I can.
It's okay. It's okay. I didn't get a slide. I don't mind.
Go ahead.
My name is Hannibal Taboo. I am the columnist at the Comic Book Resources who writes the Buy Pile. So most people in comics hate my freaking guts. Perfectly okay with that. I just recently did the Soul Fire source book for Aspen Comics after doing the Fathom source book, and I'm reading the stuff for the executive assistant source book that'll be out sometime around this Comic-Con. I've written a lot of independent stuff. I have an issue of Watson and Holmes, which is in production. Do you know if that's coming out?
Nah, it's coming.
Okay, good. He knows. He's already been out, so he knows better than I do. An issue of Watson and Holmes for New Paradigm Studios that I've written. I also am a member of a creative studio called the Operative Network, and that's where you can find a lot of my work at operative.net. And I'm also a complete jackass, father, husband, the basics.
Top cow.
Oh, thank you. Oh, and I won the 2012 Top Cow Talent Hunt, which is what broke me into comics.
Yeah.
And to follow up on the wisdom that was given here, the difference between me and not just the other 11,000 people who submitted for the Top Cow Talent Hunt, but a lot of people who said, oh, that's such a good idea, is that I kept plugging away at it. I didn't give up on anything. I decided I wanted to start writing comics when I worked at Next Planet Over in 2000, and I got my first book in the stands in 2013. Yay! Overnight success. So finishing work is the difference between professionals and people who talk about it. Really, that's what I've learned. And to quote Spider Jerusalem from Transmetropolitan, you learn about it by doing it. You get out there and you do the work. And that's important because you'll make your mistakes along the way and get to Gladwell's 10,000 hours to master it.
I want to say something about mentors and finding the right ones. Excuse me. Can you hear me? Mentors. What you said about Rod Serling is so interesting. The idea that you get to walk in his footsteps a little bit. A mentor, by definition, is somebody who's been on the road that you want to go on. And they know the way, maybe they've been there and back, and they have something to tell you about that stuff. I was very fortunate. I used to work in an ad agency, and my boss at the ad agency, this really mean guy, and I mean mean, was this fella James Patterson. He now writes all these books. And while he was running one of the New York's biggest ad agencies, he'd get up every morning and he'd be in the office at 5 in the morning on a little yellow pad writing out his latest book. Nice. And he was a real son of a bitch. He was really hard on our asses. But from him, I learned something about how it was done because he did this every day. This was his practice. I love that word, practice. Like we talk about Zen, we talk about being a samurai warrior. They have a practice. You've got to not only find your practice, but you've got to find somebody who can show you how it's done. It's not your mom who loves everything you've written. Obviously, you don't need me to tell you this kind of conventional wisdom, but I really want to stress to you, read magazines, read trade papers, read about the industry you're interested in, whether it's comics, children's books, whatever. Write letters. It's okay. Some people get really bugged by it. Okay, that's not the person for you. Some people will treat you mean, but will take your letter and will answer your call. Try and find that person who will be hard on your butt, will fire you as their mentee if you don't finish what you're supposed to finish, because they've been on the road and they know you can't half-step. So I want to say, find a mentor, find somebody who will be mean to you. It'll change your life.
Real quick, go ahead. I'm sorry. Eric,
Oh, no, I just want to quickly add that finish what you start is so important because these projects can sap your energy, so it's deadly to leave things laying around. Because the fact that it's there somewhere in your subconscious, it's telling you that you haven't done it and that you're not going to do it. So then the next thing, you carry that burden and or that weight with you. So finish it as best as you can right now, so it's not sitting there as something that you didn't complete, and in fact put deadlines behind
Hey,
it
the
to
Avengers
help
are
you.
here. Hey, how you doing? Sorry.
Oh, that's cool. Thor.
Thor.
Yeah, put deadlines behind it to help you, and there's no excuse to have no idea about how to do things anymore. There's so much help online. There's so many great books, so many wonderful people who've put themselves on video to talk about how to do things. So there really isn't any excuse not to finish something.
Right.
Now, you may not finish it very well, but once it's done, you move on and you take that energy and you put it into the next one and you keep stepping up, and it gives you a lot of confidence, and you're going to need that.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you right now that not having the confidence of finishing that last thing continues to sap at what you at the energy you're going to need for the next big thing.
Right.
Yeah, and I was going to say real quick, one of the things I put up there for a reason is the resources. Now, by a show of hands, how many people here are interested in television writing?
Cool.
Awesome. What
Yeah.
about comic books?
Great.
Roughly saying. Okay, for TV, you need to read TV scripts, good ones and bad ones, okay? Because you need to know what not to do. SimplyScripts.com is a fantastic resource.
Wow.
Now, the second one is TVWriterPodcast.com. It is absolutely astounding. You get TV writers on all levels talking about their craft. And it's not just live action, it's not just comedy, but you also get animation creators talking about their craft. The WGA.org, when you go to their site, has a little tab that says resources. Click on that. You will learn about all kinds of mixers, events, things you need to show up to. And the Writers Guild Foundation is the not-for-profit wing of the WGA, and every month, or particularly in the summertime, they have something at the Writers Guild Theater up on Doheny in Beverly Hills, or on Fairfax and 3rd. There's a Writers Guild library that has almost every important script you should ever read.
Yeah.
Seriously. I went there and I saw the first draft of Empire Strikes Back, and people were with me. I almost damn near fainted. I'm actually, it's the truth. Actually, I was like, oh my God, and I almost like, but so there we go. So also, there's a comic book script database. For those of you who are here who are online right now on Twitter, feel free. I'm at Brandon Easton. This is the Writer's Journey panel. Comic book script database is a great resource because it has scripts from Brian Michael Bendis, Alan Moore, Warren Ellis, Garth Ennis.
And even good writers.
But I didn't say that. Okay.
I like this guy's.
Flag on the plate.
Joking.
So hold on for a second. And I hate PowerPoint. Now, another way in, and I just lost a friendship over this subject. Another way into the industry is the Hollywood writing programs. Now the trick is, they say diversity, and I put that in quotes, but anyone can enter and anyone can be selected. It is a perfect way in. You just have to be good and have a story to tell. And what I mean by story is a personal story. When you have to put in your bio and so forth and so on, make sure that you tell something unique about yourself. It doesn't have to be a sob story, but it has to be something unique. You're going to come up from your character truth outward. Think of it like an onion in reverse. You start at the core and you layer. And some of them include CBS, the Disney one, which I am in, which is awesome. There's the Fox Audience Strategy. NBC Universal's Writers on the Verge is a pretty good one. And WB, Writers Workshop, also is good. All of them are going to be having their entry times now, coming up real soon. I suggest going to the websites or take a photo of this so you can have the glyphs or whatever and take a look. So,
and Brandon, one thing I want to jump in with on that is a number of the people who run those fellowships give talks at various organizations, and it's very useful to go there and hear what they like and what they don't like, because they'll really give you an edge. And also earlier when we talked about authenticity, when Brandon was talking about putting something on your submission that's distinctly you, again, really don't be afraid. A lot of people feel they have to erase who they are to succeed in Hollywood, that they have to be a chameleon, and even worse, that they have to be a slime ball. That's not true. That's not true. There's two Hollywoods. There's the Hollywood of awful, sleazy, terrible, materialistic jerks.
And there's a one with no money.
Yeah, no, I don't agree. It's that, no. Because there's also a Hollywood of authentic, wonderful people coming from passion, coming from their heart, creating work that they want to share with the world. And J.J. Abrams is like that. Guillermo del Toro, I just wrote a book with him. He's very much like that. Spielberg's like that. Anyone who wants to write TV or film for the right reason is writing because movies and TV shows have touched their heart, or comic books, or novels, something. You want to be part of that world, not because some people want to do it because they want to get rich, but those people generally don't succeed. They do it because they want to share something from their heart with the world, just like the media, these different media have touched them and informed them and created who they are. All of us can name movies and TV shows and books that have made us who we are in the world and how we move through the world. And so don't be afraid of showing who you are and sharing who you are. Now, craft is what you need to shape to be able to write to the voice of a show. But ideally, I'm the only writer, by the way, who wrote for both Smurfs and Friday the 13th, the series. Okay? Okay? Now, also, I'm the only writer who wrote for both Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5. But with all of the different shows that I've written for, I always find some part of me, something from my heart, that I put out into those scripts. So whether it's Brainy Smurf or Quark or whomever, they're ultimately my representatives of who I am to the world, if I'm doing it right. So again, be brave, be courageous, be yourself. A friend of mine, I'll just finish this and then we can move on. A friend of mine wrote every day for 10 years before he wrote something that was authentically his. And he sat down and he would word associate, and he wrote 2 words. He wrote the lake as his title. And he remembered when he was 8 years old and he went into Lake Michigan swimming with a little girl friend who was 7, and he came out of the water and she never did. She died, she drowned. And when he finished the story, he wrote it all in one sitting. When he finished the story, tears were streaming down his face because he knew he'd finally written something after 10 years of writing every single day. He had finally written something that was uniquely his, that no one else in the world could have written. And he told me that it took 2 years of writing every single day from that point on to write another story that was uniquely his. And then he got better at it and better at it, where he could do it over and over, writing stories that were uniquely his. And that was Ray Bradbury. Okay? So, So it was a struggle, and it was a learning curve for him too, but he of course became one of the great writers. So
may I quickly add as well, if you're into comics, nothing wrong with TV, but the Top Cow Talent Hunt that I won in 2012 is an amazing resource because if you see me online at Hannibal Taboo, lots of times I spend a lot of time cursing out. Marvel hasn't hired more than one black writer since 2009. DC hasn't hired more than one since 2011, and people think I do this because I want to work there. I don't. I have a full-time job. I take care of my family. I do not care about Marvel or DC. What I care about is for there to be an even playing field. And the Top Cow Talent Hunt, they didn't care if I was black. They didn't care if I was a jerk. They didn't care about any of that. They took a look at the script I sent in and they said, yep, let's get this guy in comics. And here we are.
Great. Oh, and one thing I want to say in that regard too, yes, Hollywood and publishing and so forth, is it racist? Is it ageist? Is it sexist? Yes. But you can't let any of that stop you. I won the Writers Guild Diversity Award last year because I'm old, and but when I was my first job on staff on a TV show was story editing Friday the 13th, the series, and we were taking pitches every day because it was a 22 episode order. We were writing 11 in-house and 11 were from freelancers, and I noticed that all the people they were sending me to pitch to me were white guys, and so I said to them, shake it up. Send in other ethnicities, send in women, shake it up. And they did. And what I realized was that the sexism and the racism weren't deeply, these weren't like, crackers from the South, or anything. These were just like guys working at Paramount. But the thing was, all it took was one person to say, change it. And they started sending in, black people and Asians and women, and we started buying stories from them, of course. But so again, you can be the agent of change, wherever you are. And it's very important for all of us to be mindful of that and make that happen. But of course, the color that Hollywood respects most is green. Yes. So you'll define green girl.
Like her.
And but that's why Shonda Rhimes and all of these things. The moment you get successes like that, all of a sudden things start to change big time. So.
And by the way, diversity is a big universe right now, and it is differently abled. It does look different. It's not just black or white. There's so much opportunity right now, so many opportunities, if you think differently, for you to get in there, because they are, I think, inspired by all these new ideas from different places. So if you come from a different place, and not just, I'm from Arizona and I'm from Winslow, And that's already different in this world. That's a diverse world because maybe people think that black people only come from a certain type of place. But I was raised by German Lutherans and I lived with Navajos and Hopis. If you are Indian or if you have that background or you have a very unique background with a differently abled person that you take care of, that world can be source. So diversity is a wonderful world and it's a wonderful world to bring to your stories.
Yeah.
I was going to add to that real quick. Tony, do you have something?
No.
Oh, I was going to add, like, I'm in a Disney Writers program, and one of the guys is in a wheelchair, one of our people. And you might not be able to tell this, but I am really shy, believe it or not. No. I swear to God I am. You put me in a mixer, and I do not want to talk to anyone. But I hang out with the wheelchair guy because everybody wants to talk to him. You know, I'm serious, because it's like, and I had to think, like, you know, I'm 6'2", but he will never be able to stand again. And it caused me to think about things differently. Like, as shy and weird as I am, he is really a lot more able to talk to people. And so I'm forced to, like, come out of my shell because I absolutely hate going into a room where I don't know anybody. You know, I hate that. And it's very hard for me to do it because I just never know what people are thinking of me because I'm very, very hyper, what's the word, self-conscious. So I never know what people are thinking of me, so I'm always wondering, are they thinking this of me? How should I behave, blah, blah, blah. And by being next to him, he gives me the strength to talk. And without him being there, if it was just a guy, I mean, it's not because of the wheelchair, it's because he doesn't see himself in a negative way. He doesn't look at himself as being differently able, you know? And it gave me a sense of strength, and I can walk and jump and do all kinds of, I mean, I'm a big guy, but I can do all that stuff. And, you know, but the trick is, his presence changed my life in little ways. He doesn't know that, but I don't talk about it because I don't really talk too much about this stuff. But diversity can be all kind of things, you know, and it's not about making white men feel bad. It's just about there's the real. No, I'm serious because some people look at it that way. But it's like the world when you hear this is what the world looks like, the planet Earth. So,
Good.
talking point number 2. How do we approach the transmedia marketplace? Meaning movies, TV, film, books, comic books, video games, the whole 9 yards. And now this is my advice. You do not have to take this advice. I have been saying this for years, and people who have taken my advice have done okay. Create a brand new property for whatever medium, right? But write a series of short prose stories set within that universe. Then distribute that prose collection as an ebook to build a following, and then generate print versions for conventions and for other reasons. You must also remember that when you are a writer, even if you're just doing television or film, but especially if you're doing comics, you are literally a showrunner of comics. You have to do marketing, promotion, hiring, firing, research, and distribution yourself. It is all online for free. You just need to know how to use Google properly. Seriously. Also, for those of you who want to do comics, you must also realize that you have to hire an art team, not just an artist, but a team. Your team includes penciler, inker, colorist, and letterer, if you choose to have your book in color instead of black and white. That's a team, and none of these people generally want to work for free. So I'm going to go out to this crew. What do you feel about ways to approach the transmedia marketplace with new material?
May I? I love this idea in many ways, so much that 3 years ago I went with it to Stranger Comics, which is a company that created this property called The Untamed, and they're working with Amandla Stenberg from Hunger Games now on working
Rue.
on. Oh, you know that?
Rue, the little girl.
Yeah, as Rue. Yeah, she was Rue, and sorry, I was like, what? So I said, we're not putting out comics fast enough. We're not putting out animation fast enough. We should just write some prose collections because we can do that now. We can just put that together and throw it up digitally, and it's got low overhead. And they're like, I don't know. So finally, last month, my first collection of that, Wasso Will to Power, came out on Amazon, and they're working on, and this has actually never been said anywhere before, so this is an announcement. Wasso Gathering Wind will be released in late May from Stranger Comics electronically, and it's stories set in the world that both serves to expand the information and let more people know about it so more people can get involved and be engaged with the content, but also lets them give more depth to the story. You know, the fact that Iron Man's a drunk, you learn in Iron Man, so you don't need to see him fighting with his alcoholism in the Avengers. They've already done that work. This allows you to do, if not pre-work, some of the heavy lifting and storytelling outside of the main things that you have to worry about selling in a way that's not very expensive.
So I can address some of this too. my heroes when I was growing up were the writers, not the actors. So, it wasn't, I didn't want to hang out with Leonard Nimoy. I wanted to hang out with Harlan Ellison and Dorothy Fontana and Ted Sturgeon and so forth, Matheson, George Clayton Johnson. So what my big heroes like Ray Bradbury and Rod Serling, they were writing in film and TV and books. So that was always my goal. But it was very interesting because early on, I sold a TV pilot. It was optioned 8 times, and then I sold it as a trilogy of novels to HarperCollins, and then to audiobooks to Blackstone. And my book agent said, well, why do you want to sell it as an audiobook? And I said, well, because then it's in 2 different parts of the bookstore. It seemed like a no-brainer to me. But so I've always seen the great power of going between different media and in enlarging the universe. And I also, by the way, like it all to be canon as opposed to Star Trek and Star Wars now. With them now saying that none of the Star Wars novels are canon anymore. All that. Yeah, exactly. So, but
on forever.
But I think an important question for those of you who want to write for TV or comics or anything is you say to yourself, what is my goal? Like, for instance, when you write a script, is my goal to sell a script or is my goal to make a movie? They're 2 totally different goals. And it was very interesting. A couple of years ago, I sat myself down and I said, okay, what am I actually trying to accomplish? And I realized that ever since I was 13 and read The Making of Star Trek, which was the first thing I ever read about how TV shows were made. When I wanted to grow up to basically be Gene Roddenberry, to create and run my own TV show. And everything I had done in books and in television had been toward that goal, and I'd risen from, a story editor to executive producer, but I hadn't gotten my own show. I had written pilots and done a ton of episodic. And so I said, well, what pieces of getting to where I want to go can I remove to get directly there? And I said, and now, because of the way the world works, I said to myself, I can remove the studios and the networks. I don't need them anymore. And so I went directly to my audience. And I'd never raised money before, but I came up with Space Command, which is this big, hopeful vision of the future, because all the science fiction I was seeing in TV and film a couple of years ago was very dystopic and very negative, and Jesus Christ, on Battlestar Galactica, couldn't someone have a birthday party once in a while? But, so much as I liked that show. And so I'd never raised money before. So for instance, when I was a producer on Sliders, I didn't have to raise $30 million. Universal just gave it to us to make 22 episodes. But I thought, okay, I'm going to start small and see if I can raise money. So my target was $75,000 to raise in 2 months for Space Command. And we raised that in 3 days. And we kept going, and we raised $221,000, and that was enough to open my studio and start shooting movies. And then I've been selling investment shares directly to the audience, $7,500, 35 shares. That raised me another $260,250 for the first film, and I'm selling shares in the second movie, and it's going very, very well. And I have my own studio full of spaceship sets, and I just finished shooting the first movie, and now I'm ramping. I've written the first 4, I've outlined 5 and 6, and it can either be a series of films, or it could be 12 episodes of a season, the first season of a show. So as soon as we have the rough cut and can slug in some finished effect sequences, we'll go to Sci-Fi Channel or Netflix or Amazon to roll it out as an original series, because they can be a distribution arm, but I don't need them to be a production arm, because what happens is then they don't say what I get to make, okay? So, and what I just told you that I just did, any of you can do. Go to where the actors are, down on the dealer's room floor, tell them a project. If they get enthusiastic, do a Kickstarter campaign. You can raise hundreds of thousands of dollars just with the actors who are here, so you don't have to wait for your dream to become a reality, and you don't have to give over your power to companies that really don't give a shit about your dreams.
Tony.
Well, I can't top that. That is really deep. Can I be you? I just wanted to suggest just a way of looking at things, perhaps, speaking of this transmedia universe. You raise a very important question. What was it I set out to do? What do you want to do with this career? What do you want to do? And how many different ways could you accomplish getting there? You know that famous Bruce Lee interview where he's saying, "Be water, my friend. Water can flow, water can..." Well, I try to think like that a little bit because Hollywood, this whole business, I'm now aging out of. I was a boy genius at one point in this business. I'm aging out of that really rapidly, and I had to find ways to get around the obstacles that went in my way. I adapted Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 for Mel Gibson, and I was once a little golden boy doing that kind of stuff. Now I find certain doors closed in my face, and I had to go around them. I just want to be brief about this, but after the age of 50, I sort of taught myself how to draw comics because I found people not reading my spec scripts anymore. Yeah. And I found that I had to kind of go around that, and maybe people they'd look at comics in their car or wherever, they'd look at comics. And so to sell our writing work, my wife and I, we had to learn how to make comic books from scratch, and I'm very proud of that accomplishment. I don't suggest everybody just drop the writing they're doing and go out and try to learn to draw, but I do want to suggest that what Brandon said is true, but it's only partly true. As a writer who's trying to do comics, you may have to find that whole team. You may find you have to be that whole team, and that's okay. Because of the distribution channel of the internet, stick figures, your little drawings may be the precise thing that helps you put your package together to show your writing in a different light. If the door is closed to you one place.
Sorry, I'm dying here.
It was nice knowing you. I'm sorry. Don't die. The late Eric Alexander, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, that's my suggestion. Find ways to go around, to flow around those obstacles, and because you can do it. You're creative people. So creative people, I hope, will find a way.
And I wanted to say real quick, excuse me, I'm coughing too. George R.R. Martin is a hot name now, right? Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, Fire and Ice, whatever it's called. When I was in high school, which is around like 89, 90, he did the same thing I'm talking about here. There was a Game of Thrones style series he created called Wild Cards, except it was superheroes. Thank you for reading that. That was an awesome book. Now, Wild Cards was a series of short stories, prose, set in this crazy superhero universe that started around 1929 or 1930, right around the Great Depression, where a virus bomb exploded over Manhattan, and a small percentage of the people who survived the first wave were mutated into these monsters called Jokers, hence the card deck, and then 1% of them turned into what's known as aces, or the good mutants, the people like the X-Men, people who still look cute, but had all these great powers. So George R.R. Martin did an anthology of superhero stories back in 1989 in a shared universe. And I read that, and it forever changed my way of thinking about how to create material to put out there to the masses. Yes, it is on Amazon. Look up Wild Cards. It is almost as good as Game of Thrones. A lot less rape, thank God. You know, I'm not kidding. There's no rape in, almost no rape in Wild Cards.
Wow, almost no rape.
I don't know what it is with that guy, but anyway. All right. So, talking point number 3, for TV folks, we're going to talk about the importance of the spec script, which is a sample based on an existing program, as well as the original pilot. For feature-length films, you need a fully completed script that's been professionally evaluated. The problem is people aren't buying original features that much anymore.
They sure ain't.
So, now, the third one, we're going to get a little bit into that in a minute, but in comics, nobody wants to read a script. They need to see a book. And a friend of mine, and I wish he was, Marco, are you here? God damn it, you're supposed to show. Okay. My friend Marco, a couple years ago, I said, when you go to a convention, people want to see something. You can go up to an editor and say, I have an idea, they'll shut you out. But if you give them, this is his book, not mine. He showed up and gave me this book, and I'm taking him seriously now, because he has something to show. And ultimately, you need some kind of product to validate your writing career, because we're living in what's known as the post-content era. No one's buying ideas unless your last name is Abrams or Cameron or Spielberg, or in some cases, Lucas. You know, so think about that.
But I will say one thing that's super cool, which is that all of these guys at the top, the internet is such a wonderful thing, because all of these guys have their assistants whose job is to stop you from getting to them. But they're all on the internet, and they're all watching stuff and looking at stuff and emailing stuff back and forth, and that makes it permeable. So like Space Command, the first week we're shooting Space Command, Brian Burke, who's JJ's partner, calls me to say, from the Star Wars stage in London, say, we can't wait to see this film that you're doing. Great, swell. You know, but the point being that you can get to these people, you can reach these people, but it's the work right. that will do it. And but Brandon's absolutely right. You have to create the work. One thing I also want to say, by the way, you know, it doesn't mean that it's easy, and it doesn't mean that you don't get bummed out, and it doesn't mean, I mean, I have a major nervous breakdown every few minutes. Okay, you know, and so the thing is, you must surround yourself with a bouquet of people who will allow you your dream, so that when you falter, they hold you up. I'll tell you something interesting. When I wrote The Twilight Zone Companion, that book was rejected by 25 publishers over a period of 2 years. And my wife said, just keep going. And if I hadn't had her, I probably would have hung it up. And that book's gone on to sell 500,000 copies, and it's still going strong. Wow. So, you know, so surround yourself with people who see who you really are when you lose sight of that.
Yeah,
yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I got it. So Likewise, from a comic standpoint, we have 15 minutes. Okay. From a comic standpoint, when I was walking around saying, "Oh, I want to write this," "Oh, I've got some novels out," blah 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 blah, people were like, "Yeah, okay, blah blah blah, whatever." When this was announced, Artifacts 35, that I was going to be writing this for Top Cow, I got it was announced at Wondercon, strangely enough. What was that? That was in 2 years ago. And while I'm there, a publisher walks up to me, "Hey, so I hear you're doing this Artifacts book. Would you think about doing some Watson and Holmes for us?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So I was able to announce that. Somebody heard that. "Oh, we want to come talk to you about this, blah, blah, blah." Work begets more work. But that all starts with you finishing it in the first place. Because when the Top Cow Talent Hunt happened, they said, "Write 8 pages of script." I wrote 22. I was like, I know what the rest of the story is. Why would I stop? So I try to overperform in every case. I try to make sure there's always more. So if I went to have a meeting at, strangely enough, BET, where they said, "So what else you got?" After I pitched them the main thing that they had been talking to me about for months and months and months, I said, "Well, let me pull out these other 3 things." And they were like, "Oh, okay, most of the time people don't have anything." I'm like, "No, are we here to meet? Are we here to talk? What are we doing?" So I still didn't get that check, but I was ready for that check if it showed up. So.
Go ahead, Erica.
I don't know what the question was.
If you were a tree, what kind of tree?
The importance of having product to show under any circumstances, properly vetted product that's representative of what you want to create.
I'm good.
That's hysterical. I want to point out, we got to deal with a decent publisher, this Dark Horse Comics, because we had 56 pages of prepared material already. Just to Brandon's point, drawn, lettered, colored, the whole McGill.
Right.
And the guy said, "I'll publish it. It looks good." So we got in business with them. We've been in business now for 5 years. Feels good, but it started because we were willing to overperform a little bit.
They say that in A&R all the time, that record companies don't want to develop artists anymore. They're like, you got to be fully packaged, you got to have your fan base, you got to walk in the door ready to, just distribute and make more money for us, because it's a tough industry and people don't have time to develop you. They don't have time to help you along. That's got to, unfortunately, now be our job as writers and as creators.
Right.
We have to develop ourselves. We have to develop our own fan base, our own brand. Brandon was on this great panel earlier today about learning to pitch yourself as a brand. I'm like, oh wow, I've pitched stories, I've never pitched me, okay. And it made me rethink a lot of things that I say about myself. So learning these lessons is super important and very, it's a challenge because I'm also kind of an antisocial jerk. But you have to get out of your shell and, because if I was sitting at home with my wife, doing something and I was typing and my kids were running around, then I wouldn't be able to, say, "Hey, I got, Wasso Will the Powers on Amazon. Hey, go get that Soulfire, whatever, Soulfire source book." Sorry, Vince.
Please.
I mean, that goes back to finish what you start. Because if you finished what you start, when they ask you if you have something else, you can say that. And you have to think of these things as real estate. They don't lose their power. They don't lose their value just because they haven't sold or you haven't found the proper place for them. So be prepared to have those things obviously in your back pocket. They may have called you in for something specific, but what they may be looking for that day could be something you wrote 4 or 5 years or 10 years ago. So, there's nothing wrong with being ready for that as well.
Right.
Right.
Also, one other thing I would jump in and say is collect talented people, okay? In other words, when you meet people who are talented, hang on to them, build teams. We talked about that a little bit earlier.
Marry them.
Yes.
Well played,
Yes.
sir, well played.
Yes, but 21 years ago, my friends in Hollywood were feeling very bummed out and isolated, no surprise. And I'd said to myself, rather than just complaining about Hollywood, I'll do something about it. So I created a round table of writers and directors and actors and producers, editors, composers, novelists, etc. The rules were very simple. We would meet every week, once a week at a restaurant, and everyone would be treated the same. No pecking order, no arrogance. And it started with 6 people, and now it's several thousand. And we have offshoots all over the country. So don't try to do all this stuff alone. And many of us are shy. It's true, I'm shy too, surprise. And I'll give you 2 things that will help you with that. I've figured out a great thing to say as an icebreaker. You say to someone, "What's your big dream?" And most people will light up when you ask them that question. And they'll say, "Well, I compose music." Or they'll say, "I'm looking to open a tattoo shop," or whatever. And if someone doesn't have a big dream, or if they treat you like if they look at you like you're you know, foolish for asking that question, move on, because they don't have the heart that's going to understand you. Okay? And the other thing is, when you're going for a meeting with an executive, read their Twitter feed. Okay? And when I won the diversity award at the WGA last year, there was a bunch of us, and one of us went for an interview to be hired on staff on a show, and she asked the guy who was mentoring us, who knew that guy, tell me something about him that he really loves. And he said he loves Columbo. He's crazy about Columbo. So in the middle of the interview, based on nothing, she said, I don't know why, but I just feel like saying, you know, I loved Columbo. And he said, so do I! And he hired her.
All right, guys. Real quick, before we open up to questions, we're running out of time. This is just an example. I said editors, publishers, and your potential fan base would rather see that than that. Mm-hmm. Okay? Questions?
Find a way to make it happen.
Questions, please. Come on, folks. Yes, sir.
So this actually kind of goes on what you were saying a little bit, Mark, about finding other people.
Yes.
So, like for me personally, like I'm an aspiring writer and all that, and I do have my friends with me and all that. But I was just wondering if you have any advice for places to look in particular for other like creatively minded people.
Yeah, there's this place called Wondercon. Yeah, you should go to it sometime. You know, it can be anywhere and everywhere. Go to book signings, go to events where, well, okay, here's another tip. Make a list of 50 to 100 people whose work you love in comics, in books, in film, in television, writers, directors, producers, executives, and go to those events where those people are talking. And sometimes you'll meet them, sometimes you won't, but you'll get insights into what makes them tick. And sometimes some of them you'll end up working with. I mean, you know, when I did the Twilight Zone Companion, some of those people I ended up hiring. Some of those writers I ended up hiring when I was on Sliders, you know. So, and now with Space Command, I have to build a big team. My friend Ian McCaig designed Darth Maul and Queen Amidala, and he's been working on JJ's Star Wars. He was one of the designers on Rocket Raccoon, on Guardians, and he's my character designer on all the things I do. And it's like, you know, I just wrote a pilot, and someone gave it to him, and he liked it, and he became my artist, and the next guy who hired him was George Lucas. So I recognized his talent before he designed characters for Star Wars, but I was right, you know. So you can find those people, whether they're starting out or whether they're very accomplished.
Yes?
I am a storyboard artist and a screenwriter, but do you think it's bad to focus on both and try to develop myself as well? I'm a freshman in college, so
Great.
yeah, I don't want to like try and like keep myself, you know, down because I'm trying to focus on both and I don't know which one to get into yet. I need to get myself out, you know.
Quit school.
Yeah, really.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
But no, I joke with you. But
I can't afford it. That's why I'm putting forward to it.
oh, listen, you should do both. You should do more. Many people I meet, many young people, we were just up at Otis College of Art and Design in Los Angeles, and we found some amazing people, and we also found some people who were not doing enough. People who someone had told them, oh, don't try to do those two things. I would never discourage you from doing that, and as a matter of fact, I'd say, go take a third talent, a third kind of cross-training, learn how to cook, learn how to do something else, read more, and it will make your work stronger.
Tony, real quick. There's a gentleman behind you who's going to be in the next panel. That's all about independence. He's a storyboard artist and a writer, creator.
Right.
You definitely want to talk to him. His name's Robert.
But
Okay.
yeah, but here's the super cool thing. I just want to mention one thing about that. It's really important. Because you can draw and because you can write, you can take your screenplays, do storyboards of your scripts, use those as selling tools. You can make them into animatics. If you do a table read with actors, that can be an audio track. You can marry that to your animated storyboards. You can have an animatic so people can watch your movie, first of all. And secondly, you can also turn those into comic books.
Cool.
So you've got some really good skills.
We've got
skill
time
set-
for two questions.
skill set
So
makes
we
you a
got
director.
Gentleman in the gray and then a lady in the black. So go ahead, Hannibal.
I was just going to say to her that I believe very firmly in being multidisciplinary, especially as a freshman in college. You still have a long way.
Way to go.
You know, you still have a lot of things that you are going to learn. You know, I learned how to DJ when I was in my 30s. I learned, you know, how to be a professional writer in college. I learned things along the way, and those things make each other thing better. I tell a story when I'm DJing a set. I'm like, this song title ties into this song title, ties into this song title. And sometimes people come up to me and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. When you do these sorts of things, it informs all of your work and it makes you more rich as a creator.
Great. Yes.
Yeah, I have a technical question about spec scripts.
Go ahead.
I've met a lot of people here who love fantasy genre, and so I'm trying to write spec scripts for shows like Walking Dead. Sometimes it's stuck in the logistics of it. What exactly are execs or people who are looking at execs looking?
Character. Make sure the characters have something incredible. I'll give you an example. I think what got me into the ABC writing program was I did a spec pitch for How to Get Away with Murder. I made a bottle episode, which is damn near impossible in a hyper-serialized show that does reverse chronology. But I did an episode, I found something in one of the characters that it was a toss-away mention. Like, if you watch How to Get Away with Murder, Wes, the black character, mentioned he was Haitian. I felt, what if there was an illegal immigration story there? Bam. Just do something in a spec that doesn't fundamentally alter the world, but does at least grow a character. It's tricky, but it can work. I wrote an Arrow spec, my favorite show in the universe, right? In my Arrow spec, I had a story about Thea and a sex tape, right? Didn't change anything about Thea, because what it actually is isn't what you think it is. But there was a story with Thea potentially getting involved in something she probably shouldn't have. It didn't fundamentally change Ra's al Ghul or Deathstroke or anything like that. It just fundamentally made a little tiny shift in the perception of a character. So character shifts, not world shifts.
I'm curious about the panelists. What was your moment of pure joy as a professional?
Wow. Good.
Well, I did a book.
She asked us what was our moment of pure joy as a professional.
I did a book last year called New Money, #1 for Canon Comics, which was kind of a ridiculous concept where he said, I want to make Entourage, but instead of one guy being rich, I want everybody to be rich, because the guy who was paying me, he was a football player, so most of his friends were rich. So I thought this concept was ridiculous, but okay, let me see what I can do with it. And I ended up having a lot of fun with it. I wrote the script, and normally I write a script and I just kind of emotionally let it go because I don't know what's going to happen after I send out the script. N. Stephen Harris, who is also the Eisner-nominated artist of Brandon's Watson at Holmes thing, did the art for it. I got the comic book back, and it's exactly what I wrote. It's exactly, perfectly, line for line, every idea that I want, brilliantly realized. And I was like, oh my God, I never had that happen before. So yeah, that was an enormous moment of joy for me.
That's great. I came up with a story for Deep Space Nine called Far Beyond the Stars, and thank you. And the week they were shooting Far Beyond the Stars at Paramount, they were also shooting an episode I wrote for Sliders called Slide Cage. And so I got to have 2 studios shooting my work simultaneously, and I went on one day with myself in the same clothes. I got photos with both casts on both sets. That was.
I don't even know you, and I don't like you.
Yeah.
You wanted to be him a minute ago.
My moment of pure joy, I mean, I'm an actress mostly, and I get a lot of accolades right away, like you get a clap or you get a pat on the back. But as a writer, nothing, and very few people knew that I could write, and frankly, I didn't know if I was a real writer. I knew I felt like one, and I knew I would produce some things, but I didn't know how the world felt about it. So when I made the Mad Men script, I actually made it to join a writing program, but I missed the deadline. And it sat there for 7 months, and then there was the 4th season of Mad Men, and I thought, Tony, I'm just gonna put it online, because I think it's stupid what writers do. They write things and it's on shelves, and I'm a person, I'm in showbiz, I'm gonna put it out there. So he made me a WordPress blog, and he put it out there, and funny, that night I was flying to Atlanta to do a show for BET or something, but by the time I landed, Tony called me and said, have you looked at your blog? And I said, no, and there were hundreds of people who had shared this script, and it went viral. And in 2 days, I got calls from House of what is it, House of Lies? Yes, with Don Cheadle's company, and I got an agent from New York, a literary agent who called. And suddenly to have that validation as a different type of artist, and it, you know, and to say that my ideas were worth something and that they had value beyond my name or some small celebrity I had was very satisfying, and it was probably one of the biggest breakthroughs that I had as a person.
Quick moment of joy. I've been writing for 30 years, and while I enjoyed a little heyday in the 90s, doing these action pictures and working with Oliver Stone and doing all these big burly male pictures, yada yada yada, and I thought it was pretty cool. But the last real script I wrote was actually the best one, and it was a little down to the ground kind of picture. It was an action picture, but it was just a little gangster picture, like in a room, in a car, in a room, and the writing was really singing. And I found that there is that really happy place sometimes that a lot of writing experience brings you, where it's just working for you. And I was so happy. Oh, stop! Stop. That's it.
I think just getting up every day knowing that I can create. Because there was a period of time when I was teaching and I felt further away from my dream than I ever was. And the first day I landed in LA in 2008, I drove past Paramount Studios, which was a place I had a mentor at for a very brief time, and I felt like I would never achieve that. And then one day I get a call from ABC program, and it was saying I got in. And it was a validation for every chance I'd taken, every bridge I'd burned, every horrible moment of my choice to be a writer, because I've had every door slammed in my face in any way a door can be slammed, literally. And to be validated just for being a writer, nothing else. That was the joy. There you go. Thank you so much, folks.
This is wonderful. Thank you.